Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In the previous episode, Diep bravely faced Mr. Hone, James's father, when she firmly returned the money he had given her. She made it clear that she was fully capable of earning 10 times that amount through her own ability and hard work. With James's wholehearted support, she gradually built a clean produce supermarket, a place where she invested all her trust, effort, and dreams of a truly independent future. However, behind the bright lights of that success, everyone knew that James's father would not simply stand by and watch her rise. But all of that was only the surface. The real story began when James returned home that evening. His face showed exhaustion, and his eyes carried the fatigue that had followed him for months. Days of running around to handle work, combined with the tension from the growing distance between him and his father, had made the pressure inside him heavier than ever. And then, there was Diep's unintended remark from the day before. She had not meant to hurt him, and he understood that people sometimes lose control of their words when they are tired. Yet the wound still lingered like a faint scratch, stinging each time he remembered it. He did not blame her, but the feeling of helplessness remained, weighing on his chest as he opened the door to their home. In the small kitchen, Diep was preparing dinner. The soft sound of a knife on the cutting board and the familiar aroma of her cooking filled the room with a quiet warmth. Hearing James enter, she paused for a moment, but quickly steadied herself. Under the warm yellow light, they looked at each other not with anger, but with the awkwardness of two hearts still aching from emotions that had run too deep. When they sat down at the table, the atmosphere was still a little strained at first. James ate slowly, his eyes dim with tiredness, while Diep kept glancing at him, wanting to say something but hesitating. Finally, when only the faint clinking of dishes remained, Diep took a deep breath and gently set her chopsticks down. "I am sorry about that day." Her voice was soft but sincere, as if she had gathered all her courage to express what weighed on her heart. James looked up. In his eyes, the softness gradually replaced the fatigue. He did not speak immediately, only listened, letting her apology settle into the silence inside him, a silence that had been filled with pressure from work, family tensions, and the fear that Diep might misunderstand him. Diep continued, her voice trembling slightly. "I was tired that day and raised my voice. I did not want to make you feel bad. I know you have tried so much for me, for the supermarket, and I should not have made things harder." Her sincerity slowly eased the air between them, like a cool breeze softening the heat of a long day. The tension on James's face began to fade, replaced by the feeling of being understood, something he had longed for during all those exhausting days. The light remained warm, the food still steaming, but what had changed was the distance between their hearts, now gently finding their way back toward each other. At the small dining table, where the warm overhead light reflected off dishes still steaming, the conversation between James and Diep slowly shifted toward a hidden pain that both had been avoiding. After a long silence, James set his chopsticks down, his fingers trembling slightly. He exhaled as if releasing a burden that had weighed on him for far too long, then quietly began to speak about his journey abroad to find Hung, a journey Diep had only known a small part of. His voice grew low, heavy with exhaustion and loss. He told her how he had followed every clue, every fragment of information, determined to find Hung. He had met him, had seen with his own eyes the life Hung was struggling to survive overseas. But instead of relief, everything became even more chaotic. Unexpected complications and hidden obstacles turned the entire journey into something far longer and far more painful than James had ever imagined. What struck him hardest was the truth that the one behind those obstacles was not a stranger. It was his father, Mr. Hone. Diep froze. James swallowed the bitterness he had buried for too long and continued, explaining that his father had deliberately blocked his return to Vietnam. Every connection, every line of communication, even his finances were cut off. He had been forced to escape like a fugitive just to come home, just to return to the people he loved. Every step he took had been an act of risk, haunted by the fear of being detained forever in a foreign land. Hearing this, Diep gently reached out and placed her hand over his. Her eyes softened, though sorrow deepened within them. She told him that while he was gone, she had tried her best to work, to keep the business going with Mr. Lin, to stop life from collapsing. Yet even in the crowded marketplace or across negotiation tables, she felt the emptiness widening inside her. It was not the work that needed him. It was her life that needed him. Then she mentioned little Nee. Each time someone casually said James's name, the child would burst into tears. Sometimes, just seeing a shirt he used to wear or hearing the door open made her run toward it, only to stop in confusion when he did not appear. Those small moments tightened something inside James, and the image of the little girl with round, tearful eyes missing him so deeply made his chest ache unbearably. In that emotional moment, a long-suppressed resolve rose within him. He said he wanted to gather evidence to sue his father. To end the damage Mr. Hone had caused to him, to Hung, to everyone. He wanted to break the chains holding his life captive. But Diep immediately shook her head. Her voice was soft but firm. To her, no matter how wrong Mr. Hone was, he was still James's father. There were pains in this world that could tear a heart apart, yet could not be taken to court and resolved by law. There were lines that, once crossed, would make things impossible to return to what they once were. James froze, his eyes flickering with uncertainty. He knew she was right, but that did not lessen the wound inside him. She looked at him, her eyes growing red, and said the words that required all the courage she had left. If their love became the reason James and his father turned against each other, then they should step back. Because she refused to become the person who ruined his life. She refused to be the reason he carried the burden of being called unfilial or lived with regret for the rest of his life. James turned away, silent. His back stiffened, as if trying to hide the emotions rising inside him. He stood up and took several long steps away from the table, his silhouette weighed down as though carrying an entire darkened sky. The door closed with a soft click. But to Diep, that sound tore straight through her heart. A tear fell onto her hand. Then another. She sat quietly in the kitchen, still warm from a meal left untouched, hurting yet believing she had just done the right thing to protect him even if it meant letting her own heart break on its own. That night, after James walked away in silence, Diep returned home with heavier steps than usual. The familiar path leading into the boarding house had always brought her a sense of peace, yet today it felt darker, longer, as if it stretched with every breath she took. When she opened the door, the soft yellow light flicked on, and little Nee immediately ran toward her, her innocent eyes lighting up like two tiny stars. "You are home, Miss Diep," the child exclaimed, wrapping her arms around her with a small but heartfelt embrace. Diep bent down to return the hug, and though she tried to smile, her eyes could not hide the faint sadness lingering within them. She stroked Nee's hair, led her inside, and prepared a simple dinner for the two of them. The small home remained the same: the old wooden table, the slightly scratched chairs, the warm smell of porridge drifting in the air, but inside Diep, everything felt empty, as if she had just lost something deeply important. During dinner, Nee chattered eagerly about school, her friends, and the new bow her teacher had given her. Diep listened, responding gently, but her mind kept slipping back to the pain in James's eyes as he walked away. No matter how hard she tried, her heart could not shake the guilt weighing it down. Later, while the two of them folded clothes before bedtime, Nee suddenly looked up at her and asked, "Miss Diep, why has Uncle James not visited lately?" The innocent question made Diep's hands freeze. Just 1 second, but enough to tighten her heart painfully. She looked into the child's wide eyes, the same eyes that had softened James so many times. There was no complicated suspicion in them, only the simple longing of a child missing the warmth of someone who cared deeply for her. Diep kept her voice soft. "He is busy with work, dear. When he has time, he will come visit you." Nee nodded, but her expression clearly dimmed. She hugged her old doll close and leaned gently against Diep's arm, whispering, "I miss him." Just 3 simple words, but they cut straight into Diep's heart. She swallowed the ache rising in her chest, pulling Nee close as she rested her chin lightly on the child's soft hair. The familiar scent of childhood only deepened her sorrow. If even a child could feel such loss, then what about James? Diep knew she had hurt him. She knew he wanted to protect her, to fight for her. But letting that happen would mean forcing him to stand against his own father. A family torn apart, split into 2 sides because of her love. The thought alone felt like her heart was being crushed. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing deeply to hold back her tears in front of me. All her life, Diep had lived with kindness and consideration for others. And this time was no different, in fact, even more so. She did not think about her own loneliness without James, nor about the dream that had slipped from her hands just as she touched it. Diep, a gentle, compassionate girl, made the most painful choice. She accepted the burden alone so that James and his father would not become enemies. She believed that if she stepped away, his family would not fall apart. She believed that sacrificing herself was the only way to protect him from guilt, from being labeled unfilial, from living a life torn between love and blood ties. Night gradually settled. Nee slept, her breath soft and steady like a whisper of peace. Diep sat beside the bed, staring quietly at the ceiling. In her reddened eyes, the dim light reflected the shadow of a heartbreaking decision and the strength only those who truly love can muster enough courage to choose. But Diep had no idea that, while she was trying to preserve peace for James, choosing to sacrifice her love in order to protect his family, another storm was quietly forming right behind her. Far from the warm glow of her small rented room, inside a spacious office lit by cold white lights, Mr. Hone, James's father, sat silently at his desk, gripping a gold fountain pen tightly in his hand. His eyes sharpened, dark and deep, as if holding an entire stormy sky within them. The lines on his forehead made his stern expression even more intimidating, like a warning that something ominous was being calculated with precision. Mr. Hone had never been a man who tolerated failure. And to him, the fact that Diep, a simple girl from a modest background, dared to refuse his money, then managed to build a clean produce supermarket that was thriving and full of customers, was an insult he could not accept. He did not understand that it was her dream, her dignity, her years of effort. In his eyes, there was only one truth. She was pulling James away from the path he had designed for his son. Each time he thought of her name, his gaze darkened. And so, he began to plan. Step by step, slowly but ruthlessly, like a hunter patiently waiting for his prey to fall into the trap. In the thick darkness of night, the computer screen cast a cold glow across his face. Files were opened, secret phone calls were made, hidden orders were issued, all pointing toward one target: destroying the supermarket Diep had poured her heart into building. A plan that could knock her life down once again, just like the days she had collapsed and had to start from nothing. A blow that, if successful, could take away everything she had only just begun to grasp. Meanwhile, Diep, still drowning in sadness over James, had no idea that an undercurrent of danger was quietly approaching. She went on with her days, keeping a smile for little Nee, silently bearing her own pain in exchange for the fragile peace she wished to preserve for James and his father. If she knew that what she was trying so hard to protect was being threatened by the very person she never wanted James to confront, the hurt would be far deeper. Outside the window, the night wind swept by, carrying a coldness that signaled an incoming storm. No one knew how strong it would be. No one knew what it would sweep away. And Diep had no idea she was standing at the very center of it. A looming question awaited. Could James and Diep withstand this cruel scheme? What would happen to her supermarket, the symbol of her hard work and pride? And James, would he be able to stand by her side in time to protect the woman he loved, before everything collapsed? Stay tuned for the next episode to uncover all the unexpected twists.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người. Mình đang làm video. Nay mình tiếp tục lên tới video về tạm biệt mọi người nha.